What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. Welcome back to another preview video. This one is going to be for the final week of the Six Nations 2022. This is, of course, where we chuck on a game in the background of the teams they're going to be playing, and then over the top we'll have a look at the official teams that have been announced going into this game, have a look through all the players, who we think might do well, who we think might do badly, go over all the different team changes, and then finally we, of course, give a score prediction. First game of Super Saturday is going to be Wales versus Italy. It's going to be a really exciting game, so let's get this one kicked off and underway. Alrighty, Dan Big will get us kicked off. Not a lot of wind. We'll go straight down the middle, try and push Italy back into their 22. So, Super Saturday is, of course, coming up, and Italy versus Wales, Wales versus Italy, will be the first game of the week. So, let's have a talk about... Let's start off with Wales. Wales, the home team. Last week, Wales went up against France. Wow, as we see, Alan Wynne-Jones already getting absolutely clattered. I wonder if that'll happen in this game. Wales went up against France last week, and I actually got to go watch it. I actually went down live. I got to see it going on, and it was a really, really exciting match. I actually think it was one of the better performances I've seen from Wales so far, certainly in this Six Nations, putting what could be a Grand Slam France team on the back foot for a lot of the game. There was a lot of territory, there was a lot of possession from the Wales team in terms of being in the stadium. The atmosphere was absolutely bouncing for Wales to try and get away, but unfortunately, a couple of silly mistakes, a couple of last passes not going to hand, a couple of knock-ons, a couple of different handling errors, a couple of penalties here and there. Really felt like it let them down, and I think they'll be annoyed genuinely not to have come away with a win in that game. In all honesty, I think I haven't really watched a lot of it back, but I think from what I saw watching it live and actually, you know, any of the highlights that I've seen, Wales seem to be on the dominant foot for more of the game than France, I would say, and given the fact that they had, Ryan Elias went over and had a try held up. We had that pass from Faletau that wasn't the best that Jonathan Davis knocked on. There was another chance later on that I think Faletau got pinged for the holding on to the ball. So there could have been the opportunity for 2, maybe 3 tries for Wales in that game. And I think France will be very happy they came away from that with a win, because they were certainly put on the back foot a lot. So Wales will just need to tighten up in this game. That's the one thing we've sort of been saying through the entire Six Nations so far. They just need to get that final 10% correct. And Wales will be doing really well, in fact, in the Six Nations. So hopefully they can get it together against this Italy team. So talking about going into this game, let's check out the team that's been announced to play in this one. Starting out in that front row, Gareth Thomas, Dewi Lake coming into the side instead of Ryan Elias this time, and Dylan Lewis. Now, this is probably a lesser capped front row for Wales, as we've seen going on in the Six Nations. Not actually sure what's happened to Ryan Elias. He's not on the bench either. I don't know if there was potentially an injury in there that I have not read about or not heard from. But to be honest, I'm very happy to see Dewi Lake going on. I really think Dewi Lake has been outshining Ryan Elias in almost every game. Maybe the Scotland game was the only one where I thought Ryan Elias was getting some stuff right. But in all honesty, every time Dewi Lake comes on, the line-out seems better, the scrummaging seems better. I don't know why he hasn't started more games. So for me, I think that's a really nice move. Onto the lock department, we've got a couple of switch-ups here. Adam Beard moving to the 4 shirt rather than we've seen him in that usual 5 shirt, still retaining the vice-captaincy. And the return of Alan Wynne-Jones coming in here in the 5 shirt. Now, this is a weird call for me. Alan Wynne's one of the biggest names in World Rugby. He's going to be going on for his 150th cap in this game. Certainly got a lot of experience. Everyone knows who he is. He's going to bring a nice dynamic to this team. But you do wonder what the reasoning for this is. Are Wales going in a little bit too confident that they're just going to beat this Italy team? Italy have lost every game so far in the Six Nations, but it certainly doesn't mean they'll lose this one. They played very well last week, so I think it'll be interesting to see how that actually pans out, bringing Alan Wynne back in. You've also got to think about it in terms of injuries and stuff. Alan Wynne has certainly had a few injuries in the past sort of year, 2 years, so I'm not sure if he'll play the full 80. I imagine he'll play the first 40. To me personally, I would have kind of liked to see, if they had to put Alan Wynne in, I would have maybe liked to have seen him on the bench for this one. I think Will Rowlands had the best game of his tournament last week. I think it's a bit of a shame he's been dropped from this team, or maybe you could have even had Will Rowlands at 4 and Alan Wynne-Jones at 5, and that way you could have had Adam Beard on the bench, who's more capable of playing either the 4 or 5. I think that maybe would have been a better move. I'm not necessarily sure about that one as a move. In terms of the back row, this is pretty much the same back row I think we saw against the team last week. We got Seb Davis in that 6 shirt, who didn't really play a lot of the game, weirdly. It was a bit of a shame for him. I did think maybe he would switch to lock, but they kept the locks on for the full 80 last week against France. Hopefully we get to see a bit more of Seb Davis. He was a little bit quiet in that France game. Navidi retains that 7 shirt, and Faletau in that 8. Now, Navidi didn't really put a foot wrong, necessarily. I thought he had an alright game. Faletau has been a weird one. I've seen a lot of very, very positive things talking about Faletau in that France game. People were very happy that he came back. He's been playing, the full 80 minutes, which is always nice to see, especially when he's come back from injuries and stuff. But I have seen an awful lot of comments from people saying about how the game last week was almost like the epitome of why Faletau is the greatest rugby player in the world. And all honesty, I don't know what I missed, but I don't think he was necessarily the best. I've had a look on the fantasy teams, the Super Brew results. He was by far not the best back row on the Super Brew fantasy that we've been running on the channel. Maybe he was on the actual Guinness official one. I thought he had a fine game. There was a couple of nice little running lines from him. He made a couple of nice little breaks. But there was 2 penalties that to me shut down the Wales attack where he held on to the ball. There was a relatively poor pass that went to Jonathan Davis, which in all honesty Jonathan Davis still should have took. That missed out on a try. So I don't know. I think it was a fine game. I would hopefully like to see him step up a bit in this game. Maybe see himself getting over the try line. He's quite a selfless player. He does tend to sort of give the pass more often than not, but we know how much he likes to shift to that wing, and I think having an 8 that shifts to the wing against Italy, not a terrible move, especially when you've got the likes of Zammit and Josh Adams becoming almost like centres now. Pivic's trying to move them more towards playing like centres, so they're more than happy to move to the midfield. Having an 8 that's willing to spread to the wing just keeps the Italian wingers on their toes a bit more. I don't think it's a bad move. I just personally think I'm looking forward to seeing a slightly better game from Faletau this week. In terms of the backs then, the halfback partnership, one switch here. Gareth Davis coming in at that scrum half, Dan Biggar retaining the captaincy in the full fly half shirt, Dan Biggar on his 100th cap this week, which would be nice to see him in. Going to be a big sort of turning point for a couple of players. Alan Wynne on his 150th cap, Dan Biggar on his 100th cap. A couple of big names there trying to make big moves into the team. Gareth Davis coming in, Thomas Williams with a bit of an injury in the last game, so I think that's about right. Personally, I think I would still start Gareth Davis ahead of Kieran Hardy at this point, just for the expertise that he has. I don't think that's a bad move. Again, we know Gareth Davis likes his running play, quite similar to Kieran Hardy. I mean, they both play at the Scarlets, to be fair, so they'll be quite interchangeable, I think. But I'm hoping Gareth Davis has a bit of impact on the game from the offset. In terms of the centre partnership, slight mix-up here as well. We've got Halaholo coming on the inside centre and Owen Watkin retaining that outside centre shirt in the 13. This for me, this is the team I would like to see more often. They've Jonathan Davis moving away now. Again, Jonathan Davis not named in the team. Could have been potentially a little injury, a little something there. Again, I haven't gone back and watched the highlights from the Wales-France game, so if I didn't see it live, that'll probably be why I've missed a couple of things. Halaholo, I like Halaholo. I think he's very good defensively. I think he'll probably be a sound number 12 to have in there just to try and stop down an Italian attack that's working quite well this year. And then Owen Watkin. I think he's had a good tournament. In all honesty, I think he's been playing well. I think for me here, I would like to see either a Nick Tompkins, Owen Watkin combo or a Halaholo and Watkin angle. I think this works well. I think this will be the centre sort of partnerships that we'll be looking forward towards the World Cup. So I think getting the game time in now is absolutely a very viable option. As for the back three, a couple of big switch-ups here and a couple of big talking points to go over. So, Josh Adams on the left wing. Zammit goes back onto his right wing shirt. And Johnny McNichol coming in that fullback position. Now again, Liam Williams dropped from this side. He wasn't scoring well, particularly in the fantasy, but I thought his backfield coverage was actually relatively good against that France team. Again, I know you don't know what goes on in the backfield between injuries and stuff. I'm still struggling with a lack of internet, so trying to find out news or injuries and stuff can go a little bit amiss for me. Simon coming back in, I think, is the right move. I think Cuthbert was a fun little experiment to run. He's certainly been doing well in terms of attack and running forwards with his ball in hand, but defensively I think he's been poor. We saw it yet again last week. For whatever reason, Cuthbert just has this thing where he always decides to cut inside inside while playing defensively and almost tries to make a two-man tackle with the centre that's next to him on whoever's coming, always leaving an overlap. And I never know why he does it. It's been a thing throughout his entire career. For some reason, it's almost like he doesn't trust his actual centre inside of him and decides to try and do a two-man tackle rather than just holding your line. Maybe go for the interception. We saw it in a game last week where the interception, it was Freddie Stewart nearly ran the length of the pitch from a beautiful interception that got called back. You know, things like that is where you want to be looking out for. The way to shut down the attack, not just to get one man down. You've got to be looking for a team. So I don't think that's a bad move. Zamet came on, made big impacts in that France game, managed to get through players, making a good bit of room. So I think it's a good move to go back to Zamet. I do think Zamet might actually struggle a little bit on Ioane's wing. Ioane's been doing relatively decent in terms of the defensive, so be interested to see how he gets on. But McNichol in that full-back position is maybe the only one that's a bit questionable for me. I think Liam Williams has been playing well. I think McNichol is a good player. He certainly does really well at club level. Internationally, we don't quite get to see him in that same light. So will be nice to see him back in this team. Hopefully he gets a bit of room with the ball and actually allows him to open up a bit rather than just being that sort of return kicker. And I also think I would favour Liam Williams in the air as opposed to Johnny McNichol. So will be interesting to see how it gets on. But as of 1 to 15, a couple of switches round, but it's still a strong Wales team. But Italy are playing well. Italy played very well last week, so it will be interesting to see how that gets on. We are, of course, now into the second half in the background here, so we need to talk about the Wales substitution. Starting off in the front row, Roberts coming in now on that hooker position. No Ryan Elias anymore. Wyn Jones and Leon Brown. Now, this could be a nice little setup here. You don't really get to see... well, there's not really a great deal of hookers in this Welsh team, to be honest. It seems to be reliant on Ryan Elias and Lake. So it'll be nice to see Roberts coming in here again. Wyn Jones, I think, is more experienced than Gareth Thomas, but I think having maybe like Dylan Lewis in the first half and then Wyn Jones in the second half, I think you get to sort of even out your sort of caps and stuff in the team. As we see Rhys Zamet having a beautiful run down the wing here for a try. Hopefully we get to see that this week actually in the game. I think this is a good choice of front row. The Italian scrum has been okay, but they've certainly had their own issues in terms of some of that front row not doing too well. Luca Bigi came on last week as well just to try and reinforce that. Will be interesting to see how that gets on in terms of the scrummaging. Rest of the forwards in terms of replacements, Will Rowlands, as we've already mentioned, and then Moriarty in that 20 shirt, who last week came on at number 6. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that again this week. And then the replacement backs, Kieran Hardy, Callum Sheedy, and Nick Tompkins, who I guess could come on at 12 or 13. It's nice coverage in terms of that centre, but again, that back three coverage, who's going to cover it? If Rhys Zamet or McNichol or Josh Adams picks up an injury, there's so much support now for this Wales centre partnership. But I do think there's potentially a missed opportunity when it comes here. Again, to me here, I thought it could have been nice to have had... You could have maybe even had Nick Tompkins playing if he's fit. Had McNichol sat on the bench or had Liam Williams on the bench, would have given you better back coverage across the three, with Josh Adams able to move to the centre if one of the centres got injured. Personally, I think that would have been a better overall coverage, but I still think it's a decent team to go up against. It's an Italy team who last week had a good game, had a really good game. There was a couple of real standout players. I think I had 2 of the Italian team in my team of the week last week, because Italy just... getting better. They really targeted that Scotland game. They will have been annoyed not to come away with a win last week. I thought last week was such a good week of rugby. I genuinely thought at any point any team across those 3 games could have won, and it was so exciting. Hopefully Italy keep that fire going now. It's a bit of a different thing playing in Wales as opposed to playing in Italy, so hopefully they can stick with it a bit. The crowd certainly got behind them against that Scotland team, but I really, really hope they can keep it up just to bring a bit of fire to this game. So checking out the team then in this starting front row. Fischetti, Nicotera and Casarelli coming in there in the front row. Now this was a front row that I thought worked well. I think it's the same for anyway that worked last week against Scotland. Again, their scrummaging has been okay. Their lineouts have actually been relatively decent, in all honesty. Actually, now I think about it, across most of the games, even when they've been a hooker down and a prop's got in there to throw the ball, they actually did okay in the lineout. So nothing too bad there. Hopefully that can still work out for them in this game. In the lock department, Marco Fuser and Federico Ruzza, who of course has been in my team of the week 3 weeks now. Out of the 4, that's quite an incredible thing. He might have been in my team of the week the most out of any player in the Six Nations. I think he's playing really good rugby at the minute. I really hope we get to see him with a lot of ball in hand, getting those cheeky little one-handed offloads that we've seen so much in this tournament. I think that'll be nice to see from him. In the back row, Pettinelli, Lamaro and Halafihi. Again, all 3 of these players playing well last week. Lamaro, is I feel like I'm not talking enough about him because he's doing such good work, but he's one of those players that's just doing it in the background. Every week he's up there in terms of he's easily in the top 5, if not the top 3, if not the top player for tackles. Every single week he's putting in good stints. He's getting on board with the referees. He's understanding the laws. He's getting their entire team implemented. He's got a lot of passion about him. It's really nice to see. Hopefully he keeps that up. And Halafi last week again, a couple of really nice turnovers from him. It's nice to see a number 8 jackling. There's not a great deal of number 8s when I think about it, that actually get involved with jackling. You normally see it from flankers, sometimes from locks. So a number 8 getting involved and being a jackal threat just means that Wales are going to have to put more men into that breakdown. I think it's a really nice move. In the halfback partnership, Callum Brayley and Paolo Garbisi. Callum Brayley, again, could have been in my team of the week last week had it not been for Ali Price having a phenomenal game for his 50th cap. I think Callum Brayley was awesome. Genuinely, I think he's really, really good. I do like Callum Brayley. I think he offers a very different dynamic to the team. It comes across like a much more, I'd almost say like professional. Maybe it's an age thing, maybe it's an experience thing, not really sure, because I don't think he actually has that many caps in terms of the Italian team, but I think he's a very down-to-earth player and just plays what's in front of him, and it works really well, and he can get with the team. I think the problem sometimes you see with a couple of other scrum halves for Italy is they play too fast for the rest of the team. Italy are not the fitness team that keeps going, so I think Callum Brayley plays at a nice speed for them. I think he works really well in this team. In the centre partnership, Marine and Brex. Nice to see Brex still in the team. Hasn't picked up too much of an injury from the last game, so nice to see him still in there. Both of them playing well as well. Then the back 3. But a slight switch up here. Ioane retaining that left wing. Padovani moves to the right wing from fullback, who I don't think was playing too badly at fullback. And Capuzzo, who got into my team of the week, has moved to the fullback. So, good utility from a young lad here. I thought he was good running. I think I would have probably kept it the other way around. Padovani seemed to be covering that backfield well. Capuzzo came on, and I thought he actually did pretty well on that wing. Got himself, 2 tries? I think I might have kept them the other way around, but we'll see how they get on in game. As we get towards the end of the game, then we need to talk about their replacements. So, Luca Bigi, as we said last week, came on, played well, will be coming on at some point in that second half just to bolster that front row. Traore is a big man getting in there, and Pasquale. So, this is quite a heavy replacement front row here. I think this might not necessarily be a terrible move. They got a little bit less experience maybe in this Wales front row in that second half. Bringing these lads on may just hold you up. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Wales attempting a couple of driving mauls in this game. So, bringing on some big boys will probably help you out. Replacement forwards for the rest of them, David Sisi, Canone and Bram Stain. So they've gone for the 6-2 split. Big call here. They're obviously expecting Wales to play a lot through the forwards here, but of course it will mean in that second half space will begin to open up as those backs tire. I wouldn't be surprised with the 6-2 split. Italy try and keep the ball in hand a little bit more, try and use their forwards a little bit more. Don't let the backs get exhausted in this game, for the love of God, because it could start going wrong later in that second half. And then the replacement backs, Alessandro Fusco and Zanon coming in there. So, I don't really know what a great deal of coverage in this backfield. We've got one replacement, scrum half, one replacement, centre, no idea in terms of the other switching rounds. I guess if a fullback gets out injured, you just have to chuck Zanon on. Maybe Marine is happy to move to a wing. If Garbisi gets injured, I don't know who else can play there. That's a big calls. They're going to have to hope. To be fair, I don't think I've ever really seen Garbisi go off injured, even when he's got his leg hanging off. So maybe not a bad move. But in terms of a score prediction going into this game, I think Italy will be looking to try and get a grasp on this game. They played well against Scotland. That scoreline was certainly closer than I was necessarily expecting it to be. So going into this game, I'm still going to lean towards a Wales win for this one. I think playing in Wales and their performance they put in against France, I still think I'm going to lean towards Wales. It's whether Wales are going to open up with the backs. Wales have played a little bit safe through quite a few of these games, not really just launching a couple of their backs and letting the wingers do what they do. There's been far more reliance on just letting the forwards pick and go and box kicking and hoping the other team drops the ball. So I think in this game we might see the backs open it a little bit more. So I'm going to say a Wales win. And I'm going to say Wales to win by, I'm going to say 16. I'm going to keep it slightly under. I'm going to say Wales 16. I think it actually might be slightly more, but it'll be completely dependent on how Italy manage to hold it out. But of course, guys, I am but one man on the internet talking nonsense about rugby. So make sure you guys do drop down in the comments your thoughts on the teams that have been announced, your thoughts on the game, who you think is going to win, what you think the score prediction might be, and of course we do have the Fantasy League running alongside of all of this, so make sure you get your teams picked before this amazing Super Saturday before it gets kicked off. I hope you all enjoyed today, guys. We will be doing one of these games for all of the games going on across the Six Nations, so make sure you are subscribed just to keep up to date when all of these preview videos do come out on the channel. I hope you all enjoyed today, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.